Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we are going to watch about the how to be a great couchsurfer. It's a great way to meet new people and travel on a budget. Taking the time to plan your visit will allow you to discover local culture, share stories and skills with your hosts, and possibly even form lasting friendships. Method 1. Planning a stay. First is write a clear couchsurfing request. Tell your prospective hosts when you'll arrive, why you'd like to meet them, and how long you'll be staying. Explain a little about your visit. Are you touring the area? In town for an event? Passing through on the way to someplace else? Also, make sure you've filled in your profile, so they know a little about you. If you're concerned about safety, choose hosts with detailed profiles and positive reviews. Women traveling alone may want to select female hosts or hosts with families, and to find the address of nearby hostels to use as a backup plan. Step 2. Find common ground with your host. Read his profile and look for interests that you share or that you would like to learn more about. Your host is a volunteer, and is most likely open to hosting because it means getting to meet people. Think of stories and skills you can share with your host during your visit, and activities that you could do together. Choose a factoid to use as an icebreaker, such as a shared taste in music or a location you've both visited. If nothing comes to mind, plan on asking your host whether he's hosted couch surfers before, or what he likes to do for fun in the area. Communicate using the built-in tools on the website, not personal contact info, until you are sure you are compatible and decide to go through with the couch surf. Step 3. Coordinate with your host. Once a host has accepted your request, communicate with him to figure out the logistics. Let him know whether the dates you give him are set in stone, or whether you might show up late or leave early. Whether you're traveling by plane, car, or foot, make sure you know how to get to your host's home, and what number to call if you get lost. Ask whether you'll have your own key, or whether there are certain times you'll need to show up to be let in. Find out the details of the accommodation. You may need to bring your own sleeping bag, pillow, and/or towel. Finally, get local tips from your host. As a permanent member of the local community, your host can provide advice and warnings that aren't easy to find online. Feel free to ask about any topic related to your stay, your host should be happy to help. Here are a few topics that might be useful to cover before you arrive. Are there any day trips worth doing to nearby towns or attractions? Would your host be interested in joining you? What's the best way to get around the local area? How reliable is public transportation? And how late does it run? Should you rent a car? Are there neighborhoods that are unsafe to walk through? Are there any precautions to take? Method 2. Creating a great experience. First is share something with your host. Part of the fun is getting to know your host. A small gift shows your appreciation and can open up a warm conversation, especially if it's a fun trinket from your hometown or the last place you visited. Even better, give the gift of a shared experience, share your skills. Many couch surfers travel with a musical instrument or a small drawing kit. Others offer to help with basic home repairs, craft projects, or gardening. Teach each other something. This could be a song, a holiday tradition, sports advice, or one of the skills mentioned above. If you know another language and your host seems interested, teach her a few words. Step 2. Trade stories. Talk about the places you've traveled, the customs back home, or just stories from your life. Ask your host questions about the local community, its history, and his own life. Personal and cultural exchange sets couchsurfing apart from a stay in a hotel. If you step up to the opportunity. Step 3. Respect house rules. Do your best to follow the instructions the host gives you, such as which entrance to use and when to keep the noise level down. Pay attention to your host's habits as well, and imitate them if necessary. For example, many people leave their shoes by the front door and may think this goes without saying in their culture. Don't hesitate to ask questions or apologize when you make a mistake. A positive attitude goes a long way towards smoothing out minor slip-ups. Step 4. Offer your hosts food. Food is a great way to share pleasant experiences and to introduce each other to your respective cultures. If you can cook, offer to do so in your host's home, and share the results with your host. If you can't cook, or your host seems uncomfortable with the idea, offer to pick up the tab for a meal at a restaurant nearby. If there's no time to share a meal together, or a restaurant is out of your budget range, bring a small treat from home or a nearby bakery. If your host also cooks, offer to share the recipe. Step 5. Be flexible and patient. If your host can't be home to let you in during the day, find out when he or she can be there, and then find yourself something else to do for an afternoon. It costs nothing to be cheerful, enthusiastic, and appreciative of your host's hospitality, and it can make a big difference in how your host sees you and treats you. Step 6. Stay in communication. Let your host know when you plan to return from an excursion, and communicate again if your plans change. Finally, offer to help out around the house. At the very least, clean up promptly after yourself and offer to help with dishes after a communal meal. If your host is usually busy or withdrawn, doing some light housekeeping or gardening together may be a good opportunity to connect. Method 3. Ending the trip. First is clean up after yourself. Ask your host for appropriate cleaning supplies if you need them. If your host provided a pillow, blankets, a towel, or a floor mat, ask where to put them. Return any items you borrowed. Don't leave anything behind besides gifts. Toss out all your trash, and offer to take the trash out if you filled it up. Step 2. Leave your host a reference. If you had a great time, say so. A good review will help your host find couch surfers that match her interests and attitude. To describe your experience with the host, visit the host's profile and click on the symbol, then write reference. Quote. Write an honest reference that describes your host's attitude, plus a couple specific things your host did that made or broke your trip. Mention anything you found surprising, even if it was pleasant. Other couch surfers will appreciate being told in advance. Finally, keep in touch. Not all surfers and hosts will make friends every time. But if you did find a friend, trade social media or email contacts. Say hello once in a while and let your hosts know how the rest of your trip is going. We hope it is useful to you. Please subscribe to our channel.